Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are located in the world. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today and with a great guest, Jayson Hahn. Hi, Jason. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hi, everybody.
So, okay, let's be honest here. I think that there is um, a lot of interest, a lot of curiosity, and people really want to know and discover how to start approaching this new work, right? How to start approaching entering in this metaverse from different sides, right? And I think that's really the angle that we wanted to give and touch upon tonight together with Jason, since he has indeed this experience starting as a motion designer and then transitioning into indeed spatial design at Spatial actually, and actually we got in contact because then as a let's say a explorer of tools and new technologies and new way to create also joined the contest at Shapes XR. So we thought, well, we need to have you to tell and to help people like understand and answer their questions, and that is one of the main point. Guys, I think this is a great opportunity to actually ask your own question. I do have some prepared, but I think that yours will be much more valuable. So I'm gonna start kicking it off with like lightweight conversation, but we're gonna get your questions in the chat, either you are on LinkedIn or on YouTube, wherever you are, and then we're gonna pop them to Jason to then so that he can answer back. I already talked enough. Jason, why don't you maybe introduce yourself?
All right. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Jason. I am a product and visual designer at Spatial, which is a company that's focused on creating shared experiences for all creators within the metaverse. So I'm very excited to talking about this. I love the XR industry, and I'm very amped for these questions. So bring it on.
Yeah. So, and maybe also curious, actually, guys, where are you from? I am from. For me, it's an evening. I'm located in the Netherlands. Jason, where are you based?
I'm based in the States. It's like just about noon for me right now, and I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, so in LA, so West Coast. Curious, where are you guys from? I see Bonjour from France. So it's we got also some European there. And curious, and also maybe what are you guys doing? What are you? Are you designer? Are you creator? Are you people that try to push that metaverse agenda within your own company? So let us know. So we have people from Norway, also another Los Angeles, California, Canada, in Indonesia. Indonesia is super late. Wait a second.
That's
Wait,
awesome. Thank you for tuning in.
exactly. Indrayana, please, you gotta ask a question because after such a long late night awake, we really look forward to your question. Germany, UK, ciao from Italy, ciao, Oscar. Denver, Colorado. So we do have indeed quite a lot of people. Um, and Netherlands, Alkmaar, goedenavond, me, Mike. So we do have with people do VR design, New York, New York. So it's really crowded. So let's do this. I'll start with a question. So how did it come the transition from motion to spatial design? So was that something you were after actively, or it just happened to you?
So it's definitely something I was pursuing. When I was in college, I was studying motion design and art direction and 3D animation. And I loved all those aspects of school because it allowed me to put like personality and magic and charm into like everything that I was creating. And then while I was also in school, a friend of mine, he introduced VR to me. We all have that one person that, like changed our perspective with VR. So he brought in like a HTC Vive. We put it on. It was big and clunky back in the day, so you had like all these wires going everywhere and like piped into the PC. And we played this game called Robo Recall. And Gabriel, I played that game for probably like 8 hours straight. Like we were just like nonstop playing this game, and it was just amazing. Like we were talking about the Matrix earlier. Like it was just like that. Like these robots would shoot bullets at you, and then
And
it
you
comes
tear them apart.
you could tear them apart, you could throw them. Like it was just an experience that just kind of like really opened up my perspective on like what creation could be. And from that point, I was intrigued and I just wanted to keep pursuing that kind of route. So this was like my second to last year. at school. And that's when I really started dipping my toes into like game engines and really
Mm.
exploring kind of opportunities in that direction. And that's when I came across Spatial, and I reached out. I talked to my now mentor, Jin Lee, and I've been working with Spatial kind of ever since.
So okay, and how was professionally instead the transition? So how do you find the skill set that you acquired as a motion designer to actually apply to that kind of like new medium?
So this is actually really funny that you bring this up, because I was just talking to my girlfriend about that this morning. Is ideally, I thought, like I have a general understanding of design principles, right? Like I know like a general construct of like what design is and what's good and what's bad. So I figured, hopping from like motion design, kind of 3D animation, art
Right.
direction to XR would be a challenge, but it wouldn't be that hard. And Gabriel, I was so wrong. It was tough. There was
Okay.
a lot of like aspects that I had to learn. There was definitely like design aspects that carried over and helped me, but there was like game design kind of aspects that I had to learn, like like reducing polygons and making assets like game ready and not too heavy. There
Mhm.
was like interaction principles that I had never thought about,
Right.
like which is helpful for a good experience in XR. Um, and yeah, it was kind of like it wasn't like starting over, but it was just kind of like refreshing my brain once again of like, okay, this is square zero, and we're just gonna have to build up from here. And I'm gonna take the knowledge that I have now, but
Mhm.
it was a humbling process. So yes.
So, and I mean, I've got already a question from
Oh
Pascal
yeah.
on LinkedIn. He's asking, are you designing it in Unity? Or at
Okay.
least,
So
are you or were you, right? Because maybe you can also tell us a bit about what was the spatial part and how things are changing, maybe. But in that case, was that design that you did was in Unity or any other tool?
so yeah, like the team primarily designs in Unity. Like the foundations of the VR experience of Spatial is made in Unity. I myself am a product designer, so I primarily work in like the product design, like lowest fidelity forms like Figma. Um,
Mm.
so yes, the team works in Unity, but I personally on my day to day do not.
Okay, okay. So this is an interesting point because you bring up one of the very tough questions that many very often people ask, right? It's like how much of that Unity background do you have to need do you need in order to step into let's say VR design, let's say.
Okay, so this is perfect, because this is literally the question I get asked a lot, and it's really dependent on like this main question. And the tip and like advice I give to most people that come to me asking about what they should know before they get into XR is really dependent on like what direction you want to go within the pipeline, right? Because I feel like people come into XR with this idea of like, I want to be that full stack creator. I want to be the person that's the product designer, that working on like the lowest fidelity, and I also want to be, the software engineer building out these full-fledged XR experiences in Unity. And once you come into the industry, like any industry, there's like more kind of focused subsets of what people focus on. Like at Spatial, like we have product designers, we have visual designers, and we have like software engineers, and we also have like prototypers, which is kind of like a mid fidelity. So it's really dependent on like where do you want to be in that pipeline, and depending on what spot you choose is going to determine how well you have to be rehearsed in like Unity or other
Right,
tools.
right, right. I do have follow up on that, but as I said, as I promised, guys, your question have priority. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
ask the question from Secret. Did you have to submit a portfolio when you reach out to Spatial? What competencies did you display to give them confidence that you will be a good hire?
That's a great question. So yes, like for all internship and job applications, I always had to submit a portfolio. And the competencies, I think there was two main things that like stuck out. I can't tell you like why, what were like the specific things of why I get hired, but from my day to day now, and thinking about how that reflected in my portfolio from school, is I would say there's two things. One is like I think with motion design, we really try to emphasize like personality and like nuances of like fun, of magic, of like a little spark of something that makes you smile,
Mhm.
right? And
Special.
yeah, something special. And I think that's so important in these XR experiences. You know, like it's a new medium that you can approach from many different perspectives, and you need like those little nuances that, like you walk away with a smile, like, whoa, that was
The
really cool.
the light, right?
Exactly. And then secondly, I think was just like as a visual designer, I think I stood out. Like it seemed that I had a good eye for like palettes and a good eye for like general design principles. And I think those were like the main portions that brought me on as an intern at Spatial.
Right, right. And I also would like to sometimes, I mean, the hiring process is also like, um, it's not just about the CV, it's not just about your portfolio, it's not just about the interview. I mean, one of the important thing is often also the you have to be in the right moment, in the right place,
Yes,
and you do
yes,
that by showing up. So it means that you need to be around those community, be around those people that create, start working with them. I mean, to be honest, I want to be very frank. We, over the past 6 months, we at Shapes XR, we hired two designers, and both of them were people that we had basically relationship before we started looking for
mm,
people. And what are those relationships in our case? Well, they started using our tool. They gave us feedback. They maybe work in another company. They were looking for a transition in XR. And then at some point, it's us that we actually reach out to them and say, hey,
mm,
by the way, are you interested? So I think it's really important not to look at this as, okay, you need to have a portfolio, send a CV letter. Yes, that is important. And within that, since often these companies tends to be also kind of like small, dynamic, they hire people they know because they need to be, they need to trust the person.
right.
I think that is also very important. So it's a bit of an extra tip, right? To that I would like to share.
I agree.
So I mean, I have a question from Woohoo. Do you do
Great name.
storyboard? Do you do storyboards of interaction? I mean, how does that look?
Oh yeah, I love that you use the word storyboards because that brings me back to like school a lot where I was doing a lot of animation. So yes, we do something like that's very similar to storyboarding, which is just like in Figma, essentially, like we just lay out rough processes of how the interaction is going to look, right, at the
Right.
lowest fidelity. So essentially, yes, like we do storyboard.
Right. So that first level of interaction, they are usually, and those storyboards are done in Figma or in Sketch or in
Mhm.
Shapes.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed, because maybe I don't know. Also, because it's a good point. Maybe people that are not aware about. So, shapes is one of the things that we implemented in our tool is indeed the ability to create those storyboards, but instead of being basically flat, they are in space, right? So you have those. You can prototype those interaction, or you can prototype a user flow, and you do this switching between frames of this stage, right? It looks like a bit like a stop motion. So maybe actually something we can show some of the space that you have actually created for the
Yeah.
contest. But before we do that, let's keep answering some questions. Uh, okay, so because I do okay, another question here from Senem. Um, how do you choose your XR projects to work? What are the best use cases of XR? So, what kind of project do you pick to work on and maybe explore, for example, on your own, maybe, right?
On my
For when
own.
you want to build a portfolio. So let's try to frame it like that.
Um, okay, so like something that I definitely want to start getting into is being more of a like an artist in the form of XR and AR. Right now, I'm like solely kind of focused on XR in terms of like, my professional career. And I would very much love to like kind of express more of that and build these like creations in XR just solely as an individual, as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'm not personally working on any like XR related projects myself, but I will say is that I am outside of work, I am trying to expose myself to as many XR experiences as possible because I feel like that's beneficial in two ways. And the first way is it helps me as a designer in my professional career, right? If I go play a game and I see what this game does and like the aspects of that game that I love, I'm like, oh, I think this interaction is really cool, or like, oh, that's like a really smart way, or like a really smart perspective on how to do this. I'll take those ideas and I'll bring them to Spatial. And I think that's valuable for any designers. Like well rehearsed with like the platforms of your industry. Um, so yeah, like I'm still marinating on like what XR projects I want to start picking up myself. But in terms of like uh, choosing the XR projects that I'm working on right now, it's just for me personally, it's just about exposure, just introducing great XR experiences to myself, so I can curate those, bring them as great ideas to Spatial, but also use them for great ideas for my own creation.
And if I can also chip in on that idea, you know what's a good place to do that? Side quest. Side quest
Oh
is a
yeah.
great place because you get a lot of stuff that where people kind of like experiment and try new things. And maybe
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the game, right? Maybe it's just the experience. Maybe it's the tool. Maybe it's the meditation. Maybe it's like, so you encounter all sorts of stuff. And the fact that at the first glance they might be maybe less polished or less finished than a final
Hmm.
product, it doesn't mean that there is like loads of stuff to learn. So I would really encourage also to people that are learning, how do I start in XR? I mean, look, th- there are a lot of people that do like, for example, AR development, right? For develop AR for or design it for mobile device, right? You can do
Hmm.
that. There are a lot of tools for that. If you want to try VR and let's say the future of head-mounted display augmented reality, right? Let's talk in that sense. Then I think that the thing you gotta do is get a quest and start
Hmm.
playing stuff and start
Hmm.
trying stuff, writing
Yeah.
notes, and then it's like, I this thing I like it, but how can I build it different, right? And maybe make tell about the story, tell about that process. So that is also, and this can be done on for example, on the platform you like. It could be an article in Medium. It could be with XR communities on Discord. It could be on LinkedIn. It could be that you start creating in-shaped XR. You post it about, and we are going to reshare till till people are going to know about you. That is for sure, because that's usually what we really like to do. So. Just to chip in, right, and to help people create and get things started. So we do have new comments. People love side quest. Awesome. Um, so let's see another question from Darlene. You mentioned including moments of delight in your product. How do you ensure that those animation and details you design transition seamlessly when handing off the development team?
Dude, that is just an amazing question. I love that so much. Okay, so yeah, like I primarily for spatial work in like the lowest fidelity kind of form of the pipeline, right? So like I think of like the basics of these interactions with input from everybody from the team, and they try to come up with a feasible solution from input from the team, feedback from our users, and also like guidance from my mentors. Um, so after that's given the thumbs up, it's given the okay, we give it to the engineers. Engineers flush out that experience. And more often than not, like there's there's obviously like different thought processes. Like communication isn't perfect, right? It's like the way I imagine this is probably going to vary from the way the engineers imagine this. And I think the way that you ensure that is to have like a roundabout check once again. And also like, well, two things. There's the roundabout check, right? So it's been implemented, it's in your product, it's now in use. And then checking in on, like seeing how it's used. It does it match necessarily what you imagine, what you envision, what was given a thumbs up. If it wasn't, then you bring it up. If it was, that's awesome. That's how you ensure that it was implemented beautifully. But secondly, I think it's really important to I think Spatial, the engineers do a really great job of just bringing this question up to begin with. Like one of our engineers, his name is Aaron, he continuously brings up of like, even in places that we don't have animations or these nuances of delight, he's like, how can we add that? And I love when he brings that up because we can implement more of that into the product. Um, so yeah, I think it's both of those sides. It's like you being like, I don't know, like being responsible and just like making sure that it's implemented the way that it was intended to. But also, it's really great to have teammates that are looking for that within the experience itself. So that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that was a
I
great
think
question.
that helps. I think that helps. And I also have to say, right, going back also to spatial, I think that it's one of those products that have tried to push the boundaries of how certain interaction works and try to move away from panels, try to move away from 2D, right? And I mean, look, not everybody likes it. Let's be honest, not everybody likes it. I still think that if we don't try to create spatially for this new spatial medium, we are gonna end up with experiences that are just not designed for the 3D world, right? So I think that having, of course, a culture within spatial to embrace that level of design, and having your own engineer working to you. But how can we make this feel good, right? That is just a question. It's not someone that is writing code, implementing, and shipping to clients, right? It is a different mentality. So that certainly help. Thank you very much. Let me get look
Great
here
question,
questions.
Alex.
You absolutely. And look, I apologize if I cannot get to everybody. I'm picking. I don't even have the time to read them all, to be honest. So let's pick this one from Igor. Would you feel designers need better tool for designing? Are there moments that developers need more detail about design and tool is not able?
Hmm. Once again, great question. I love all these questions. Keep bringing them on. Um, so like yes, I think like on a very like primitive level, like we have the tools we need to get an idea across, right? But I always believe that there could be that better tool out there to express it even better, right? And it's like give kudos to Shapes XR. Like I think they did that beautifully. Like when I submitted my entry into the contest, it allowed me to express things in a way that typically you can't express with other tools, right? So yeah, I agree. Like that, we do need better tools. We do need better pipelines, and all that's just being constantly improved. So I wrote down some tips over here. Like one of my tips is like be a sponge, because like there's a lot of like knowledge you got to bring in, but also the terrain that we're all walking in XR is constantly kind of shifting and changing. So just soak in as much as you can and kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah, and
Great
I
question.
think being flexible and I mean, there are some aspects that, for example, are distance, depth, field of view of certain objects, and how are certain experiences gonna play out in space. It, it all kind of like it tends to be tough on a 2D screen to communicate that. Of course, you can show how for example, the hovering state of a button looks like, right? That you don't need spatial tool for that. But maybe
Right.
where is that button? Is that low? Is that too low? Or maybe you need maybe a laser interaction because you realize that has to be close to an object that is spatial. That is in the space, right? So it's not in a UI that is reachable. So all this conversation, I think that is like it's good to have early on with developers or with others. Maybe we could give a quick look at how you actually have built your scene, right? So that we can show that, and then we can keep getting more of your questions. So guys, thank you very much. I mean, I've super awesome to see you guys so engaged. I'm gonna get back and try to get them all answered. I want to show you this because many of you start asking, oh wait, how do we start? How can we start creating? And I think this is a good moment to pick it up. Jason, will you also get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me. We always, when we organize these webinar events, we always like kind of like to push the boundaries in different ways. So sometimes you're gonna see. Oh, here we are. Um, and just let me start casting and sharing my screen. Here we are.
Gabriel, it seems like my headset is dead at the moment, but do you mind sharing like what your view is, and I can just kind of talk it out if that's okay?
Yeah, we can also do that.
Awesome.
So I am here, and this is your space.
Um, so yeah, I think the premise of the question that Igor asked was, are the tools available to get the idea across, and also too like, is there ever a moment when during handoff from like designer to the engineer, is there ever like, just the details aren't fleshed out enough given the tools that we have that the engineer can understand? And I think so. Like sometimes definitely like in terms of VR, AR, like Spatial is a multi kind of tiered platform. Like we have a web, we have a mobile, and we have a VR. So using 2D tools for web, typically works. But using 2D tools for VR, sometimes there is miscommunication. And
Right, 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 right.
so yeah, like with Shapes XR, like that was kind of this was the my submission to the contest, and that was kind of like my first experience of realizing that I can get across these ideas in 3D space. Um, I think it was really nice for like two main reasons. Like one, you're able to like communicate different nuances of ideas, um, with this kind of toy, or sorry, not with this kind of toy, with this kind of tool. But
No, but I
secondly,
mean, I think you said the right thing. I mean, to some extent, is a toy because that's how easy you can kind of like
well, yeah,
uh, create things. So this is so. I mean, this is a mug, but you see, so this is like stuff that's been created. So this is a plant that you have created, right? And it's all created basically of these simple shapes. So let me go back. Same thing for this plant. So this is not a 3D model, right? Actually, you did an amazing job here and recreating all this. And this is just a house, right? And it's all being created just with this with shapes that you can kind of like start drawing and position and align and that's it. And that's how these things is being created, right? So it is a toy, and a powerful one, I would say. But that's how things kind of work.
agreed. Yeah, and so like I think Shapes XR was really great in terms of like I could get a message across, but I could also do it in a form that was almost like storytelling. Like that's you'll
Right.
see jelly right here on the screen, and that's usually how I like to start any form of message that I'm trying to provide is usually with a story because I truly believe that story is king, narrative is king, and that's what really resonates with people and like makes an experience or even like a message that you're trying to promote memorable. So that's why like Lilia Gabriel's looking at jelly. That's why there's jelly in the room because I start off this experience like me talking about AR VR, starting with this instance of one time where I put jelly on a piece of toast, the jelly fell on the ground, and instead of being just a normal human being and wiping it up, I decided to I decided to wipe it up with my sock off the ground, right? And that's what I show right here. Is like I was like I don't need tissue paper. I'm just gonna wipe it up with my sock. And that's kind of like
You
that's
need
the
to just explain also people what they're seeing. So this is the storyboard I was telling about,
hmm,
where you can actually move and you create these little frames and you basically move forward and show how the story. In this case, this could be a user flow, but it could be an interaction. Just move forward, right? So that people get an impression of how this works. Yeah.
yeah, and it's really great because like the reason I tell the story is like the foundation of the message that I'm trying to provide is like I like from my experience as a product designer is like uh, we're gonna try to take the simplest task to go from, or gonna try to take this sorry the simplest route to go from point A to point B. And that instance was like instead of grabbing a towel and wiping up the jelly, I just wiped it with my foot because that was the quickest way to get from point A to point B. Was it the best way? No. But I'm relating that to technology, and that's kind of like the message that I was trying to provide with this submission into the contest was um, I think there was like for wide adoption for AR and VR, we can't have this like huge gap between like the technology that we know now, point A, and then this amazing world that all of us are designing right now, which is like I don't want to say point B. There needs to be like I think this world that we're all imagining that could be amazing with AR VR is going to be like point F, right? And we have to provide point B, C, D, E, F until we get there. And so what I was trying to provide right here and try to show was step B. What are like the things that we can do with this technology right now that would add value to people's lives? So yeah,
Right. And
you
you
can
were
see here,
showing
I
the two
select
kind of
adults.
like you were showing the kind of like two kind of like possible user that would be like be geared this towards, right?
Hmm.
And the kind of people that might explore this new medium in a sense,
Yep. Yep. And this
right?
is
Yeah.
just kind of like I start splitting up. You have like AR users, we have VR users. What are the inherent values of VR? What are the inherent values of AR? And I think I decided if you go to the next slide, it focuses on, yeah, AR. And I'm like, all right, so if we're going to focus on AR, let's focus on TV and web services because AR, I believe, in the household will be more relaxed.
Right.
Um, and then I start going to personas, like that very like UI UX kind of approach. And I'm like, all right, so how would this provide value to my dad, my mom, and my brother? All three who have, different experiences and level of know-how with technology. So I go to my dad and I said, this guy doesn't really know technology super, super well. He's not very well rehearsed. How can we add value to his life? He loves football. This is kind of how I imagine him, like, using the television. And it all follows the same flow that we all know, like it has a very Netflix kind of look. You get to see the TV
Right.
in front of you and the scores right there. Like this all follows a very similar flow to what we all know today. It's just now in VR. And I think my dad
Right.
would be able to make that leap.
Right. So
And
it's easy enough for him to understand, even
yeah,
though here there is still some augmentation to make the experience more fun, immersive, or enrich it. I see that, right?
exactly. So that was like me trying to push step C. I'm like, if my dad can accept like AR, right? He went from
Right.
point A where there's just normal TV to point B where there's now AR. He would now be open to go to point C where there's like new forms of media, right? That we didn't know before. But I think he has to go from A to B to C before he goes from A to C. And that was the
Right.
premise of my
Right.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. Let's go. Can we go to my mom next?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I mean, and look, let's maybe look at your mom, or I mean, I don't want to monopolize this. It's more like to show people how then some design choices and some of these presentation can actually be held. Because now, I mean, someone is not with me, but he could be here. There is a space code you could share. You can invite people and give
Mm.
this presentation directly there. But yeah, I didn't mean to monopolize. Let's go and look at your mom. I think I think might be a good example, and then we can hop off.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like with the next slide, my mom, she's decently tech savvy. She has an iPhone. She can use FaceTime normally. Like she knows
Right.
technology. She's not like my brother. My brother, he's like a huge gamer. He knows technology like the back of his hand. So my question is like, how do we add value to my mom's experience? And once again, something that I wanted to mention is like my mom is a huge Disney fan. She absolutely loves
Right.
Disney. And so this is kind of what I imagine for her. It's like once again, it still follows the same flow. You have the Netflix panel in front of you, you have the TV and then AR TV in front of you. But what's that extra spice that AR VR provides? And I think it could be this. It could be something that's like an AR experience, like you get this added kind of spice to your experience that's complementary to you watching that movie. Um,
Right.
and I
Right. Right.
think my mom would thoroughly enjoy that. I definitely think she would. And I also too
Indeed.
like I think users would be willing to like almost pay for these experiences. I feel like it could be a very feasible kind of business model. Like if you bought it for $1 and it like made this experience even better, I feel like that's why people go to the movies. Like we could stay home and watch it on Netflix, but now but we decided to go to the movies because we like that atmosphere. We like that experience. And that's what AR and VR can provide.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I invite everybody maybe to watch our recording in a sense. Let me stop casting here, and here we go. We have actually the whole contestants who share their own design and their own story, and stay tuned and follow maybe the next contest. Uh, Meanwhile, but I've got new comments. How do you so Martin, how do you type in shapes XR painfully painfully with a keyboard? So let's be honest. Or you can import your own PNG and use that there. That's maybe a question. um, so can we join in VR? So there was a question for, where was it? Frank, no, was it, where was it? Facts. Yeah, Frank was asking Yes, Frank, you could join from VR, not now, because otherwise, if I share the code, we might get 10, 15 people joining in, and maybe it gets a little bit chaotic. But at any moment, we can, of course, arrange, and certainly you can join in VR and be part of that presentation. So let's see. Other question from. So we have a question from Rotem. What is the first thing you keep in mind when you're designing for XR?
Oh man, that is such a great question. There's honestly like so many different aspects for an experience in XR, and I'm still currently learning. Like I'm currently learning to prioritize which ones we should prioritize first. And I think at the end of the day, like it once again, this really depends on if you're approaching this from a creative point of view or if you're approaching this from like a designer point of view. And the designer point of view, I would say, is like make sure you're solving the right problem. I feel like both my mentors, Jen Lee and Peter, uh, both of them are really great at taking, like for example, like a designer will show their designs, right? And right away, I'm going into critiquing. I'm like, maybe this should be like this, maybe this should be like this, maybe we should move this, maybe this should do this, right? But my mentors, they're really great at just taking a huge step back and being like, well, what's the problem that we're trying to solve in the first place? Like, should we even be trying to like critique this because does it solve the problem? And I think that's, I mean, for any form of design, that should be the first question you ask, like, what is the success metric for this experience? As a creator, like, oh man, as a creator, it's so open-ended, it's so free, it's so fun. It's like, what do you think would be the coolest, and what do you think would push you as a creator and expresses you the most? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that the when you design for XR, there is so many different aspects to it. There is that physicality, there is that space, there is that time, there is the use cases, there is that. So there is so much to consider that makes it, I think, such an interesting medium and challenging to design for. So that is there is indeed a lot going on, and it's hard to pick. So
Good
where
question.
is I have another question. So let me ask a couple in a row. Hi, Jason, which tool would you recommend for designing in 3D? And then there is Correct. I personally recommend Gravity Sketch if you have a VR headset. Otherwise, SolidWorks, Maya, and Blender. Now, I would like to quickly chip in before you do it. Yes, you
Of
should
course.
use Gravity Sketch. You should use Gravity Sketch. If you want to 3D model anything and you have a VR headset, go for Gravity Sketch. It's amazing. And technically, then what you could do is that you can get what you have created in Gravity Sketch, bring it in Shapes XR, and maybe create a product explosion in a sense. So you can create, let's say, one of these product section, for example, or showing feature or highlight a function of a specific product. But going back to what Jimmy also said, which tool would you recommend for designing in 3D?
Well, Jimmy, I would suggest, I myself am a Cinema 4D kind of guy. But I would also recommend Blender because Blender seems to be more game oriented versus Cinema 4D seems to be more like motion design, animation oriented. For those who aren't familiar with 3D modeling tools, and also too, like once again, like to agree with Gabriel, like it depends on like what platform that you want to design in 3D. Like if you want to design on a PC, on a computer, like I would say Blender or get into a game engine if you would like. If you want to design in the VR space itself, like I would recommend Gravity Sketch or like Shapes XR. Those would both be great tools for like fleshing out a thorough experience.
And now we're talking again. It popped up a question that I read, and I didn't have the time to say, but I do remember it, and it's not connected to this, but I think it's very important, and I want to ask you also because I'm curious. Like, what kind of community do you get engaged with when it's about XR design? So, are there some hub or places or people that you actually end up kind of like following or engaging with as an XR designer?
That is a great question. I think for the community, it's like once again, like it's just been a lot of just like exposure to games and like social
Right.
kind of platforms. So I bump into like obviously if you're in VR, you're gonna bump into a lot of VR enthusiasts. Um, so that's definitely one aspect where I get like a lot of inputs. A lot too is just definitely from feedback from our users. That's definitely like a conversation that I always have. Like, um, we have a marketing product lead. Her name's Bree, and she has these awesome studies, and she like brings all our users into a room usually, and we kind of talk about spatial and what should be best and what should be improved. Um, and that's usually like a great hub for me. I know that's not, a thing that everybody can do, and I would recommend uh, like really great hubs. I mean, Gabriel, do you have like specific hubs that you're usually like in
You
tune
know,
with?
I'm thinking about it, and there are a lot of there are Discord groups that are very good, and sometimes there are also Discord groups that are tied to YouTube channel.
Mm,
So you might find some YouTube channel that are, and behind that there is a community of people that follow them, so you can get engaged. Dinesh Puni being one, and some others. The point is that they are kind of like still developer driven. They tend to be kind of like this Unity tutorial guidance. Not all, right, and to some extent, to different degree. That's what I've seen. And the other one, I mean, we do also have a Discord, and we are now trying to get more people in. Now, does that mean that it's a thriving? There are a lot of people sharing. No, not yet. Also because we started in December last year, really like after Shapes XR launched. But I do really encourage you, because there are a lot of creatives, there are a lot of people that you can relate to, and you can connect, and you can ask questions, and you can share direct tip with. So that would be my one. So, but indeed, community that are bound to YouTube channels, as well as people like Circuit Stream, right? Circuit Stream is they give
mm,
courses, but they do have also like a whole thriving community under that is, for example, very active on their Slack and so on. So sometimes when you do a course specifically, there is also a community of alumni and people that now maybe work in companies. So that is another way in which you can get involved. So I hope this guys is helpful. Um, so let me see if there are other questions. This one, it's interesting. What kind of clients are interested in XR and their services aside video game creators? So maybe this is not specifically your area of expertise, right? But still be curious, what have you seen maybe in your career? Who is that approach this new world and XR, given also the background of Spatial as a collaboration app, right? That is rather
mm.
horizontal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like the number one people who have like been accepting this new world have been video game creators and like just creators in general. And also those like, who are familiar with games, essentially like just kind of game mechanics. Like they're very easily like able to transition from video games on a 2D screen into like essentially these 3D experiences, which may have more, not necessarily complex interactions, but like a different set of principles than like typically those who haven't played video games know. So I'd see those as the people that are adopting it mostly. But in terms of like industry, like Alina, like it seems like every industry is adopting to like varying degrees. Like I've seen things in the medical industry. I've seen things with um like a lot of like construction and like pre-visualization and stuff like that, like architects and house design and product design and just like any and everything I've really seen like be influenced by XR. It's just
You know,
to
I
what
do have a
service you want to
question.
provide.
I
Anyway.
do have a question with that, like architect, interior designer, and so on, right? And I think that's a question that not right now it's prickling us, because one of the things we are doing is actually experimenting with mixed reality, right? So imagine if you have the ability to start creating in mixed reality and start putting your couch where you would want to be, or maybe a wall where it should be, right?
Mm,
I'm still a bit like hesitant, because they tend to be people that are requires, for example, a lot of precision, and maybe they really value, and it matters to them, things like, for example, the visual fidelity of something, maybe a
Yeah.
material, maybe a color, maybe the sun, the shadows, because it does matters a lot. So
Right.
do you see them also jumping in and adopting something that maybe might be, for example, on a Quest where there are obvious limitation due to the hardware? I mean, what was their impact with VR when they cannot get that this is 100% like I want it? What was their response?
Uh, I think it's all about expectation, right? Like the users that are adopting these worlds, what are their expectation of fidelity going in? Like
Right,
those with the expectation of fidelity of like Minecraft and Decentraland and stuff like that, like they
right,
don't have this expectation of like needing that perfect luster on that metallic texture that has like, 4K resolution texture like on it. Like they don't have that expectation. But
right,
but working professionals who like use Rhino or they have these rendering, they have that expectation. So like they have that expectation. So like when they come into these experiences, it seems a little like low fidelity to them. And honestly, it stinks because we have technical limitations that we can provide to them right now. Um, and there's a bunch of different services out there that are trying to like help that. Like that's why we have PC connected headsets so we can get that fidelity. And
yeah.
that's
Yeah, but then they want no, but I don't want that. I don't have a PC. It's too
it.
complicated for me. Yeah, dude,
Amen.
what can I do?
Welcome to the world of XR. Amen. Yes, that's
Welcome
how
to
it goes.
2022.
Agreed. Agreed.
Indeed. And other question: what do you think masses will adopt first, AR or VR? Oof. I mean,
That is a
it's also
fantastic question.
broad. It's also broad and yet very precise.
Yeah. Gabriel, do you want to approach that first, or?
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would say, what will the masses adopt first? I would say, like, seemingly right now, based off of where we're at, it seems like VR, just because the technology is semi-prevalent and we're seeing more and more adoption now than there is necessarily like AR. Um, but then again, just counter myself. This is a great question. Like, I gotta percolate, but we're seeing a lot of adoption in AR in terms of mobile devices, right? Like we have
Right.
like mobile on the iPhone, or we have mobile, and that's more accessible because everybody has a phone, right? Um, so I think in terms of these experiences that we're talking about, like these like full-fledged immersive experiences, VR is gonna be adopted first.
Yeah.
In terms of complementary experiences that are like, not fully immersive, but something you can view through like a phone or an iPad or something like that. AR, it's taking traction. Like just the other day, I was on Target shopping for furniture, and they allowed me to preview this chair that we wanted to buy in my space, and that was very, very helpful. So
Yeah.
it just depends on
And
the perspective.
you know, I think also it might not even we might not even be able to see the difference anymore,
Yeah.
right? Don't you think, I mean, when you are completely in a pass-through view of the world, right, and then you have one digital object and the rest is like your your real
Actual
world but
stuff.
just
Yeah.
through lenses, right? What is that AR, is that VR, is that so I think that there is, I mean, the obvious transition to move into these AR glasses is this, let's say, VR driven AI in a sense, right? Where
Yeah.
you have this, you have the pass through, and you have the digital content. So I think that it's gonna be a transition, and things are gonna kind of like merge, and then we're gonna find some ways where it's better to be fully immersed, and some moment where we're gonna be just halfway. Even though, again, right? I mean, I think you guys, if you are curious and you want to follow this topic, you should really follow me on LinkedIn. It's not but because we are doing a lot of experiments and within Shapes XR. We also welcome other people that want to share theirs. So if you want, contact me and we can have a chat and we can showcase some of your work, because that's important, because we are really curious. But is also the ability to switch between that augmented reality and the virtual reality, right? What's interesting, have you seen Slices, the concept from Unity, with the pass through, where they basically have this slice where they can change and go from fully VR to
Oh yeah.
halfway AR around the table? So that is also another moment, right? What is that? The device is a mixed reality. The experience switches between augmented reality and full virtual reality. It's going to be kind of hard to communicate, I think.
Mm. I love that perspective. I agree.
Um, so, and indeed, well, I mean, let's get another question from Sotiris. What are the skills that XR designers should cultivate? And maybe more personally, what kind of skills are you also cultivating personally?
Oh, great question. Great double question. So once again, it's just dependent on like where you want to be in that pipeline. If you want to be more of like the lowest fidelity, like work on like finding great interactions and great art styles, and just typically like just like the low fidelity kind of priorities, and like those will come with like their own kind of like skill, that own kind of like particular skill set. You want to be a prototyper, like you have like your Unity, your Unreal, like you got to learn like a little bit of both. Like you got to learn a little bit of UI and visual design. You also have to know a little bit of like game design and coding and stuff like that. If you want to be a full stack software engineer, like you're gonna have the skill sets for that particular subset of the pipeline. Um, I would say, in general, though, for the entire pipeline, typically a good skill to have, I would honestly say probably in like any design related industry, is just being a great storyteller. Like if you can be a great storyteller, like that is something that resonates with people and can help you like connect messages to like your boss. You could help connect messages to your users. You could help connect messages to other coworkers. Like being a great storyteller, I think is just like a primary skill for any creative in any particular industry. For me, there's like two things that I'm particularly working on right now, which is one being like a better product designer, and coming with that is like exposing myself more to these XR experiences, right? Like I've just been playing a lot of games with my brother, and just we have fun ourselves, but little does he know that I'm also using this time to like look at these experiences and looking at these art styles and looking at just like
Use him as a guinea pig. Whoa.
exactly. I'm just like, oh, but yeah, like for me at least, like I'm trying to expose myself more to these like great experiences, and then I can implement those into Spatial. Um, and then on the flip side, I would love, like I said before, it's like I would love to be more of a creator myself outside of Spatial, and I think being a creator myself would not only be, expressive and releasing and fun, but it also is like a mutual relationship to Spatial, because the more I become a creator, the more that I start to know my own values and the values of those that I collaborate, and the things and the tools that I want and I want to see. And then I myself, I actually get to hop in and like help advocate for those tools to the team. Like creators definitely need this, and they need this, and they need this. Um, and so that's kind of like the foundation of like the relationship that I'm trying to work on, just both professionally and creatively.
And you also brought up another thing. I mean, sometimes it seems that these apps are created by designers, are designed by designers, developed by developers. But I mean, there is still like there are product people. So, and this, I mean, something that we also got to know in Shapes XR. So, you need someone that is able to strategize and coordinate what is coming
Mhm.
from the user feedback and coming up with a strategy that aligns with the business proposition and that aligns with the data analytics that you collect. And that is not always a skill that a designer has, likely a skill that a developer doesn't have, usually. And so you end up also with this category of people that people ask me what I can do. Well, I mean, a product person is something that doesn't need to design technically, doesn't need to develop technically, but still can be super important for an XR product,
Mm.
because you need people that are able to understand, formulate, come up with a path. I've also like the negotiation and the communication skills to get people with such a different background together aligned on a certain timeline. It is so crucial. So guys, maybe it's something that is underestimated, but please look at it, because yeah, product people in XR I think are going to be big, are really going to be very
Mm.
big. And there is a question from Onkar. He asked it twice, so I've seen it
All right.
again. Now I'm asking you. Sorry, Onkar, if I didn't ask the first time. I'm an architect student experimenting and researching in VR on an HP Reverb G2. What would you suggest for one trying to enter XR design while falling somewhere between design and technical side?
What would you suggest for when trying to enter XR designing while falling somewhere between design and the technical side? Um, hmm. I think some great advice that was shared with me from my mentor, Jim Hali, is if you're on, the design side and on the technical side at the same time, I feel like you have this expectation of like, I know how to make this technically. I can flesh out this experience, and I have the tools and I have the tool set to do that. I know how to do that. So naturally, and I know this because I do the same thing, is you want to hop right into that. Like you want to like start fleshing out these like really intricate kind of like interactions and experiences. And like I'm suggesting, or I'm assuming that it's probably like architecture related kind of like,
Yeah.
projects. But what my boss always told me is like start with the lowest fidelity first. Once again, make sure you're solving the right problem that you're trying to solve. Make sure that it involves all the aspects that you wanted to in the design in first, right? Your design is like your pre-planning, and then your technical side is your thorough implementation. Ensure there's like a sprinkle of improvisation between that, like while you're creating, like while you're engineering this experience, like you may have like a moment of like on moment like design, like no, I want to make this green instead of blue.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's really great to prioritize thoroughly thinking out that experience in the lowest fidelity possible and running it by other individuals, because you haven't committed so much time and effort into that experience yet. And then other people can give you feedback real quick, and it's so much easier to just like change a few things here
Right.
before you get like dive into code in this experience.
I think it's a good, and we always suggest that anyway. Create low fidelity, iterate, share, be fast, fail fast, so that you can easily improve. And once you have stuff in your final platform, whatever that be, Unity, a 3D modeling tool, or whatever that is, right? At least you haven't spent so much time, and you get so attached to that final product that you
Yeah.
spent so much time building. So I do have another question from Shai. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. As an exact designer and creator, I often feel that my part in the process is very experimental. Maybe it's because the best practices have not yet taken over us. What do you think about it?
Shay, I feel like Gabriel and I can both agree. Like it's, like I said, it's topsy-turvy right now. The terrain is constantly changing, and what may have been a really great principle can be outdone by even better principles. So everybody has to change. And I agree. Like there is no like, I think we're coming to like some consensuses in terms of XR and VR design, but yet there's like has been no like standardizing on like this is what we should be doing. So yeah, I think we're all in the same boat. Like it feels like the processes that we make, like I will design an entire flow, right? And it will be approved by my bosses, it will be approved by the entire engineering team, and we'll give it to the users, and nobody knows how to use it, right? So it's, once again, it's very topsy-turvy. It makes us feel like we're experimenting as well. Like this whole industry is experimenting. So
It's very tough. Today I was talking with one of
yeah,
our designers, and he said, "Do you know that people didn't understand that they needed to interact with our trigger because in the Oculus menu, people you can just use the X and the A button, like the simplest thing, right? People, but they cannot interact with our menu. That is, I mean, I also use a trigger, right? I didn't even know that, but people they associate that with a remote control. A remote control, you push stuff with your thumb,
yeah.
right? On the remote. Like it does make sense, for example. But then we in VR we interact with the trigger, and then it's like, what is the standard? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the trigger, maybe it's the X, should be the X of the Y button. I don't know. It is very experimental, but that doesn't mean that you should stop experimenting, right?
Mm.
So that's very important. So keep exploring, and I think it's part of the fun. It's part of the challenge of being such a new field. Uh, I've got question. I've lost track of some, and there is sorry, Fish. He's asking, can you take us through one of the project areas that you have worked on within Spatial? We have 1 minute left.
Uh, yeah, I wish I could. But yeah, essentially, like I can give you just like a great premise of most of my projects at Spatial. It's always make sure you're solving the right problem. Listen to feedback, listen to, the thoughts of others on your team, and once again, just deliver, iterate, get feedback, iterate, deliver, get
And I
feedback.
mean, even though I think your best bet might be good on Jason. LinkedIn account, check his portfolio, and in there are some interesting projects that you showed there about for some interaction, some motion design
That's
that you
true.
have done. So I mean, that is like a great way to get really like a good flow of what was actually the project. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that you're gonna see more, and maybe you should just try Spatial and just see how it actually
Please do. Yeah.
evolves in this transition from the a meeting platform into a spaces to I mean, I wouldn't even say about NFT spaces because it's not even that,
Just
right? That's not even that.
shared spaces for the metaverse for all
Right,
creators. Really.
right. Absolutely. So, guys, I mean, I really want to thank everybody that joined. I mean, I'm gonna share in the email that you will find in your mailbox at the end of this, like a link to our Discord and Ships Inside. If you feel like trying experiment, you need new tool and you want to try it out. So please reach out. As well as if you have a project, you have something you want to talk about, you want to share. Again, reach out. We are open. We always like to talk with creators like Jayson, like many more, and we'll look forward to see you at the next webinar. Jayson, I mean, thank you so much. You see, it went as I imagined that I asked questions, and then the rest of the
Yeah,
people
I'll just have floated in. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. My girlfriend is getting tired of me bringing all this stuff up now, so like it's nice to share with others.
someone else to talk
Yeah.
about. Awesome. Jason, thank you very much. And thanks everybody who followed. It's been a pleasure. Stay tuned and see you next time. Bye bye, guys.
Bye, guys.